Okay, welcome everybody to the last parallel session of today and the conference overall, and looking forward to two papers. So we've got plenty of time to firstly get started and then also to have a good chat about these. First paper is about identifying ranking occupational stresses using a TOPSIS framework, and the second paper is looking at creative collaboration and how that can be used for large-scale infrastructure development. So look forward to having a good discussion, and we've got our two presenters on screen at the moment, and I'd like to firstly invite Ehsan to introduce himself, and I'll play the presentation and then we'll take some questions after. And what we'll do is we'll take the questions after each of the presentations. So certainly this one, and then after Anna's as well. Okay, well, thanks very much, and you guys will be available for questions after. So I shall play.
Hello and good day, everybody. My name is Negin, and I'm going to present the result of our teamwork study next slides. Ehsan, Reza, Leila, Nazgol, and me jointly work together on this study. Our topic is identifying and ranking the occupational stressors and developing a TOPSIS framework for project manager in Iran to cope with occupational stress. Owing to the nature of construction industry, the level of technical and social complexities are high and discuss tension and stress. Occupational stress is a result of interaction between working condition, individual needs, and personality, which has become widely recognized as a major mental health. Also, WHO has predicted that by 2030, mental health issues such as stress will be the main cause of mortality and morbidity in the world. According to Gray's study in 2018, 82% of people working in construction were stressed at least some of the time during a typical week. The result of this stress impacts on project managers' personal life, project progress, and performance of construction organization. Iran's population raised by 30% in 20 years, which has led to a huge demand for these assets. Many facilities have been constructed or are under construction in different sectors. The contribution of construction to Iran's gross domestic product is 19.4%, and the building sector alone constitutes 4% of GDP. Therefore, construction plays an important role in countries' economy, employment, income generation, and social welfare. Besides the lack of legislation around treating poor mental health in construction projects in Iran, companies have no clear strategy or policy to help tackle this issue, including access to helplines, awareness talks, training, and supporting system. To enhance awareness of project managers in construction industry in Iran and how to cope with occupational stress, we focus on two objectives. First, we developed a framework to enhance awareness of project manager on source of stress. Then we familiarize them with coping strategies that are effective for each type of stressors. Although literature focusing on occupational stress is rich in construction, proposing one-size-fits-all solution is not possible, because mental health intervention should be exclusive to variable culture, race, and age. Da Silva in 2017 identified 11 stressors that professionals have experienced in construction, such as time pressure, work overload, lack of control over the pacing of work, long hours of work, and different views from supervisor. The findings of Liu et al. In 2020 show that cross-cultural studies are required to generate a new context-dependent insight and facilitate the development of cultural-specific mental health intervention. A mixed method approach, including both qualitative and quantitative methodologies, adopted owing to the nature of research questions. The qualitative part helps to deeply explore occupational stress and coping strategies. The quantitative method is used to prioritize stress that occur more frequently in construction projects in Iran. For Phase 1, we conducted 36 semi-structured interviews with project manager and used thematic analysis to code transcript of interviews. 92 stressors were identified at this stage. Then Likert scale questionnaire was distributed among 120 project managers in Iran with 83% response rate. Stressors were ranked using RII, in which higher score would indicate higher frequency of stressors. Finally, 15 stressors with an RII score of overall 0.8 was selected for further study. In Phase 2, to recognize the most effective coping strategy, 5 accredited therapists were interviewed using Delphi technique with 3 iterations. They provided professional recommendations for project managers and how to minimize the detrimental impact of excessive occupational stress on their health for each stressor identified in Phase 1. At the end, the coping strategies were refined into 10 categories based on therapist judgment. TOPSIS was used to prioritize the coping strategy over the stressors, and the aim was to find out which strategy works the best for stressor. Based on RII ranking, data analysis illustrates the top 15 stressors. The 8 stressors among 15 are about communication issues. For example, unrespectful and inappropriate behavior of stakeholders is ranked 1, which emphasizes the importance of social side of construction projects and the necessity of establishing effective relationships among all parties involved to minimize occupational stress. 3 out of 15 stressors related to financial and economic consideration rank 2, 3, and 12 that sounds challenging in Iran owing to sanction and traditional allocation system of public budget to construction projects. There are also 2 stressors related to the personal stressors of project managers with rank 6 and 8, and 2 associated with managerial consideration rank 4 and 7, which have attracted more attention in previous literature and also are confirmed as critical in this research too. Surprisingly, time overrun, lack of job satisfaction, and heavy workload are not among high-ranked stressors. One reason might be the fact that delay is a recurring problem in many projects in Iran, and project managers used to exceed predetermined time. They expect the heavy workload associated with this position, and the MOCA culture prevents them from talking about these issues. The outcome of TOPSIS provides a list of 3 highly effective strategies for each stressor that are suggested by therapists. For instance, for the rank 1 stressor, which is unrespectful and inappropriate behavior of stakeholders, the most effective stress management strategies are reframing the issue, learning about coping strategies, and setting work-life boundaries. The most frequent stress management strategies selected by therapists are clarifying duties, responsibilities, and authorities with frequency of 6. And healthy response, reframe the issue, relaxation and meditation, setting work-life boundaries, and talking to your supervisor all have frequency of 5. Hence, forming a good relation with the supervisor and the opportunity to talk about responsibilities help project manager to cope with occupational stress. This highlights the importance of effective conversation among parties involved in the project. The other 4 strategies are about the inner state of project managers and their perception of stressors. Project manager, by making healthy choice when their stress rises, can tolerate this situation. Exercising, healthy sleep habits, yoga, favorite activities, playing games, and doing hobbies are some health responses to this stress. Also, effectiveness of meditation that is followed by relaxation is emphasized by the therapist to eliminate the stream of the stress mind. The results of the study show that Iranian project managers have similar issues and try to negate occupational stress unconsciously. The stressors that are widely identified by previous researchers cannot be observed within the top 10 in the list. It seems that the stressors such as unrealistic deadline, excessive workload, and lack of control are accepted as a norm among project managers. Although they attempt to hide their stress and approach it as a normal work-related fact, the negative impact of excessive stress is damaging to their health, and with lack of professional support and adequate information, project managers are overstimulated by occupational stress. While national strategy and corporate policy needed to be established for managing the mental health of construction professionals in medium and long term, a short-term solution is needed to promote self-reliance culture for coping with occupational stress among project managers in Iran. In conclusion, people who take management roles in Iran construction projects are not usually willing to talk about occupational stress because of MOCO culture. This study comes with a framework which helps project managers to be aware of stressors, recognize the stress indicator, and distinguish possible strategies that enable them to cope with these most frequent stressors in construction. At the end, I would like to thank you for your time and kind attention.
There we go. Thanks very much for a very good presentation. Ehsan is here from the team to take some questions. I don't know whether there was any questions in the chat, and if not, we can just if Chrissy's got one there, start. And I've got a couple of questions as well. So
I should probably pre-warn everyone about Ehsan's amazing voice. We had him on presentation yesterday. Thank you for that. I found that a really interesting presentation, so thank you for giving it. One of the things that I was really interested in is that a lot of the stresses that you identified were actually cultural or systemic, but the solution that you've given is individual. And so I just wondered why that choice was made. And I appreciate it might be because you can't necessarily convince the organisation to undertake action, but I was really interested as to why an individual solution was suggested for something that was systemic or cultural. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, many of these problems and stressors coming from macro, factors that are out of control of project managers. But the tool that we can handle them is personal, because if you want to convince the organization or you want to do something with the government, it's very difficult and hard. So we focus on just people, and to have a valid solution, we just approach the therapists, professional therapists that are specialized in handling stress, occupational stress. And they provided us with these type of solutions that we can use to somehow reduce the amount of stress among project managers. So yes, the solutions are personal, but the problems are just both personal and also organizational.
Thank you. And I wonder, Chrissi talked a lot about double loop thinking, and that idea that if we're only solving the immediate that's in front of us, it kind of lets the bigger problem off the hook. And this isn't necessarily directed only at your work, because I completely understand the need to give the individual something to respond in the meantime while the organisation does something. But we see this a lot with mental health at the moment. Everything's individualistic, and it allows the organisation to feel like they're doing something. Do you think there's a bigger issue with that, or do you think that, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, this is a short-term solution only, and not a real answer to the main question, which is about mental health of project professionals. This is, we should start somewhere, right? So I think that we first develop a simple tool that project managers use, because, most of them have not received any education in these topics. They are not aware about the stressors, and they don't know how to manage stress. And many of them have, when they reach, for example, 55, 60, they will have so many diseases, specifically heart diseases. So we just start from somewhere. But yes, the main answer is that organizations should actually do something But many of these project managers are employed temporarily. They are not employed in the long term. They just come to one project, finish it, and go to another project. Some of them get the payment is very good for them. But, the impact of these stressors are impressive. So we should start somewhere. But yes, I think government should initiate to do something for these professionals. But it's not a problem really in construction. In all other industries, we have similar issues. But in construction, because of the attributes of this industry, the problem is more critical.
Yeah. Thanks. I have a question, but I'm interested in anybody else that is here. If you want to either pop a note in the chat or raise your hand and let us spot you. Well, while you're doing that, I was interested. You had a very good response rate of 82% for your questionnaire, your survey. I guess that tells us that it's an important issue within the. Did you get that impression when people were responding? Did they?
Actually, we had many issues in previous research. When we done the survey, the response rate was not very high. So this time we used another strategy. We talked to one of the governmental organizations and asked them to send these questionnaires to project managers. So somehow they had to respond to the question because the client sent these to the project manager. So we used that technique.
Mm-hmm. Well, interesting. And you obviously did a literature review of the occupational stresses that came up in the literature. Did what was coming back from Iran particularly, was it very similar, or was there any differences that you spotted from the Iranian context?
Well, there are similarities and there are differences. In terms of, for example, stressors, we identified 93, I think, and among them, at least 85 were similar to what were identified in the previous literature. But in terms of, ranking, so the one that has higher priority, it is quite different because, for example, in many cases, time overrun is the main issue, is the main cause of stress for project managers, for example, in other countries. But in Iran, it's not that important. It is still in the high rank list, but somehow people get used to it, right, as explained in the presentation. So they don't. In time overrun is something that's normal. We always have time overrun, so that it is fine. It is normal. But so there are some differences mentioned. But this paper is only part of a large project. It has several phases, and we couldn't explain ourselves in just 10 pages. But there are. We have a list. In the main, research. We compared the list that we got from the literature and some new stressors that we identified during the interviews. I don't have the list in my hand, but there are differences.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I think you always feel that there's context as part of it, and then there's of course the global issues. Chrissi,
the economy the problems that many of them have, for example, purchasing issues, specifically for critical facilities, or for example, for some items that should be imported from overseas. They have many problems because they paid the money, but they couldn't receive the item because of sanctions and sort of things. This is one of the main points that all of them also mentioned about it.
I just had a follow-on question from what you were saying there about the normalization of these stresses, which I definitely recognise from when I worked on site, that we just make these things normal and it's what we put up with. And that led me on to thinking about how when I worked on site, if maybe some of the solutions that you'd come up with here, which I have no doubt are good solutions, we wouldn't necessarily have adopted them for a number of reasons, including back then, it's been a good 15 years since I worked on site, but things like, well, you wouldn't see a therapist, or, like these cultural peer pressures that would prevent us from getting or using tools that would be useful. And I just wondered if you felt that those barriers would also be in place, and if so, how, is there another paper in how to overcome them?
Yeah, actually, market culture is there, and it's even worse than the UK. You know, people think that this is a job of the project manager. You are paid for this, and it is normal. But the thing that I want to actually promote is that it is not normal. You shouldn't accept this. You should do something about it. You should try to cope with it. And you should talk. One of the solutions that we included in our list as a coping strategy was just talking with your supervisor, with your, for example, your client, or the consultant of the project. You should talk with them and try to say no. You can somehow negotiate on things. You should express yourself. You should make some agreements based on the deadlines. So these conversations should happen. But the first thing, the main point behind this project was that make them aware that excessive stress is not normal. Stress is something that, normal stress is okay. But excessive stress is something that you shouldn't be silent, and you should think about it. You should do something about it.
Definitely agree. I think learning the difference between pressure and stress was a big light bulb moment in my career. I don't know, Daniel, if you've seen that there's a question.
Yeah, I was just going to see, I was trying to, open up May's mic if she wants to make a comment in person. I think it should be. I think I've offered you the choice there now, May. It's the first time I've used this system, so hopefully you can.
Hello.
Okay, success.
So I'm just wondering about, I think you were discussing that as well as I was writing my question, like there is a normalization for stress, that stress is something that is normal and that's what the job requires. So it's okay if I was not feeling well or something like that. But I was wondering also that like maybe changes in the organization might be a very good solution, like not to put responsibility only with a very small group of people on site, but to actually distribute this responsibility instead of giving responsibility for just one person sometimes. So I think that's also something that could be discussed as well, to change the organization a little bit of the site management and find solutions on like the immediate level of the project, and not maybe look so far into the organization and look for very big systematic changes. Because at least I was doing some interviews, and some of the safety engineers and the site managers that I interviewed, they mentioned time stress as something that okay, it's there and we will have to deal with it. So they don't think that this could even change, and I think that's not very good for their like perspective and for how they perceive this. So yeah, I was wondering how you would see that as well.
Again, it's similar. People think that it is an integral part of their job. And organizations, they have so many other issues and challenges, and they think that, okay, it is a fancy topic, and, all of our project managers are very tough, they are experienced, all of them are men. We have very, very few women project managers in Iran. So it would be fine, they should handle it, they are tough, This type of notion should be changed first. But before that, we are losing people,
Yeah.
So we should do something. First, we should inform them that this is not normal, so they could approach their organization to do something about it. They ask their organization to do something, or they can do something themselves. For example, go to a therapist if they have serious issues. Okay,
Yeah.
some of them they're just shy. So no, I don't need therapies. I'm not crazy. I'm good. Sorry for the noise. So and many of them are shy. Many of them they're not. I'm not weak. I'm very strong. We always have these issues. So I think lots of work required to be done in this regard. And the problem, for example, in Iran, there's nothing in the policy, in regulation, even in the health and safety policy, there is nothing about mental health. So it's quite dangerous, actually.
Yeah. And I think that also it could be some kind of a cycle of mental health damage that stress lead to, like maybe less better health choices of food, exercise, and sleep, and so on. And this would lead also to more stress and mental health challenges, because the person is really like going into a cycle of going down a mental health issue. And I think that there could be an escalation here from one level to the other. And we have seen also in other presentations that like suicide is a major issue, and very tragic numbers of suicide in construction workers. And I think that could be one of the reasons that the mental health accumulate to reach such a tragic state, is that it is not being treated, and then it leads to more and more mental health challenges, and health challenges as well, not only mental health. So thank you very much for the presentation. I really think that this is a very important topic right now.
Yeah, I know that, the literature available on this topic is quite rich, but in practice, specifically in developing countries, there are so many things to be done in the future.
Yeah.
And Chrissi, I think, I'm very interested in feminist research. So we've done research on the role of women in the Iranian construction industry. So we can talk about it in the future.
Yeah, and I definitely think people often think that feminism is about women, but I think it's just as about men. These ideas of this toxic masculinity and the pressure on men to be this masculine ideal and not the sweet, wonderful, soulful individuals that they quite often are.
Yeah. Toxic masculinity, I like this term,
there could be some sort of harassment for the workers on site that don't show that they are as strong, or that they can take harsh jokes, or that they want to be safe. So I think that there is also some kind of pressure here on the workers from each other as well. So I think that's also something that is contributing to many safety and mental health issues.
Well, it's been a really good discussion. That's great. I'm conscious there are a few other people in the room who haven't had the chance to contribute. If anybody wants to pop anything in the chat, or I don't know how to switch everybody on at once. I don't know, Chrissi, if you know how to do that, but maybe we could do that after the second talk so that we can have everybody chatting if they wish. But I think that's been a really good discussion so far. I think it's probably worth, if we want to, what time is it now, 15:15? That's probably a good time to move on to the second presentation of Anna. And if my buttons work correctly, her presentation will be arriving on your screen soon. So,
in an effort to improve information.
So that's it, started automatically. Right, so Anna, I'll start your presentation, and we'll have a good set of discussions after.
Sharing communication and project outcomes. Collaborative space has been increasingly utilized in construction project management, but little is known about this practice and its role in the construction process. Welcome to this presentation on collaborative space, titled Creating Collaboration, the Use of Collaborative Space in Large-Scale Infrastructure Development. The paper is co-authored by Hällström and Petra Bosch-Sijtsema. Petra will be available after the presentation for Q&A regarding our research. The agenda is as follows: a short introduction to theory, a presentation of our research design, discussion, and conclusion. The problem we are facing is a lack of insight into the relevance of collaborative spaces in CPDM specifically. Our aim, therefore, is to give insight into the relevance of collaborative spaces in a project network created around a project using a CPDM. This will be placed in relation to COVID-19. The sudden shift from physical spaces to virtual ones caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the role of the collaborative space. The project network is created by actors, involved in a single project. These actors in the project are then connected with ties, which can be either formal or informal. Formal ties are, for example, the types of electronic communication and document platforms, meetings, or the project organization, while informal ties encompass, for example, social relationships, awareness, knowledge, and ad hoc communication. A network enables collaboration by facilitating information, and one of the methods to do so is the collaborative space. Close proximity facilitates ad hoc and chance encounters to improve building relationships and facilitating common understanding. One of the ways to increase this proximity has been the introduction of the collaborative space. The way space is organized shapes how people go about their activities, interaction, and gives meaning to experience and a sense of identity. This is the main argument for recommending collaborative spaces as a key tool in the implementation of CPDMs. Since collaborative spaces promote the creation of social ties between individual project participants, they are essential to the concept of CPDMs. 4 types of spaces are discussed as relevant for collaboration. A physical space consisting of the material environment as well as geographical proximity. A social or communicative space focused on formal and informal interaction. A mental or cognitive space comprised of mental models of individuals or shared mental models of a team. And finally, a virtual or technological space for interaction and connection via technology means, for example, email or video conferencing. Since the mental space can be seen as a product of the interplay between the other 3 spaces, we have here decided to leave it outside our discussion. And the collaborative space of CPDMs can thus be viewed from the physical, virtual, and social space. In the recent developments of COVID-19, especially the virtual space, in addition to the collaborative physical space, has become more important in terms of, for example, shared IT systems and different virtual solutions. Thus, it becomes interesting to look at the interaction hereof, especially in a time when work moves to the virtual plane due to requirements of working from home, also in construction management. The project is located in Northern Europe, where we conducted 21 interviews, which were taped and transcribed, document analysis, 40 hours of observation of the collaborative space and meetings, and we also got access to 4 biannual surveys received from the project, totaling approximately 600 responses. We focused on the 3 actors of the client, the design engineer, and the contractor, who were connected with both formal and informal ties in the shape of contracts, meetings, social relations, and organization structures. From the survey data, the opinion of the value of the collaborative space was in general high, with the mean being over 7 for all surveys analyzed, on a scale from 1 to 10. The client was the most positive, with a mean of 8.18. They were somewhat used to early-stage collaboration, but they were unused to co-location and the collaborative space itself. The design engineer was quite positive, with a mean of 7.83. They were used to collaborating in early stages, but they were also unused to the collaborative space itself. And finally, the contractor was the least positive, with a mean of 7.27. They were used to co-location or a communal project office, but they were unused to early collaboration with the other actors. The project furthermore had a common document sharing platform and utilized message apps to keep subgroups connected. However, we can also see how the real world influences the virtual world. Although the client was somewhat used to virtual spaces, there was a conflict between the design engineer and the contractor regarding the virtual space. The design engineer had some problems accessing their home organization resources from the block offices, which led them to using the physical space less, and in turn made the contractor question their work ethic, which was the largest conflict in the project. However, even though project participants were positive regarding the collaborative space, the ones spending the most time at the project were the least satisfied with it. This discrepancy could be due to the people at the office missing the resources they had disposable at their home offices. Colleagues and their knowledge was one of the most cited resources, especially among design engineers. However positive the occasional visitors were regarding the collaborative space, they were, however, negative regarding finding seating. Since physical co-location is key to a functional collaborative space, this concern should be taken seriously, so that the project creates a welcoming culture for occasional visitors from their organizations participating in the project. Some respondents were moreover negative regarding the noise level in the open office space, which was commented on by the project management as well. The collaborative office isn't suitable for all people or all tasks, which should be taken into consideration when planning the space. During observations, people interacted mainly with the people seated near them in a social capacity, such as having joint coffee breaks or lunch. There was also evidence of people walking over to have unplanned discussions or mini-meetings, as one respondent called them, related to the project work. However, due to COVID-19, people were forced out from the physical space, which increased the role of the virtual space. Both the document sharing system and messaging apps became very important. This was also seen in the survey answers, as respondents mentioned the importance of the collaborative space. However, they also remarked on the benefits of an existing social connection to other project participants when the work moved into a virtual environment. They also noted challenges created by working remotely without the informal daily meetings enabled by the physical space. They felt that the project work was moving more slowly due to the use of virtual collaborative tools and spaces. There was also a decrease in the lack of possibilities for informal meetings, one of the main benefits of a collaborative space, as mentioned by respondents, as well as less opportunity for water cooler meetings, common lunches, and other social interactions. The social interactions taking place in the space, coupled with the resources available, strengthened the project network and social ties as people from different organizations interacted. However, during COVID-19, the lack of physical interaction increased the role of the virtual space. Work for the client representatives and the design engineers moved to their home offices, while the contractors resumed work on the construction site. The collaborative space in the form of physical, social, and virtual spaces facilitates a shared understanding and informal social ties, and thus helps shape the project network. The physical space is important in terms of seating arrangement, the social space in terms of access and availability of social encounters and informal meetings, and the virtual space in terms of infrastructure and providing a platform for online collaboration. However, when one of these spaces becomes unavailable, such as in the case of COVID-19, this has implications for the project network and the development of social ties. The stronger focus on the virtual space and the lack of a joint social and physical space increased the risk of actors falling back into traditional roles, and the collaboration benefits of CPDMs could therefore shrink. The collaborative space in the form of physical, social, and virtual space are very important for network building and tie formation in the project network. The project infrastructure must therefore support a virtual collaborative space, especially in times such as these, where the physical facilitators of social space are restricted, reducing impromptu meetings and interactions. Future research could focus on the space in relation to social networks, as well as the effects of constricted social ties in the collaborative space. The research is limited by its geographical context, as well as the case methodology itself. Thank you for your attention, and now we have the Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna and colleague, for your presentation. I don't know whether you're both available here or you're just on the microphone, Anna, but have we got some questions that we'd like to ask Anna to begin with? Whilst people want to put things in the chat, I'll ask Chrissi to start off.
Right, and thank you for the presentation. It's quite frankly beautiful. It was so well stylized and just a lovely, lovely use of presentation there. And so I found it really, a few things really interesting as well. I really liked the difference between the client perception and everyone else's perception. I don't think it's unusual, which led me to wonder about the role of power within these spaces and whether those informal power structures remain even when you take that space away. And So that was so many questions. So yeah, so one, do you think that those power structures interrupt the desire or the proposed goals of the common space?
Thank you for that very thought-provoking question, because I haven't really thought about it in terms of power. So, but I would say that the collaborative space gives rise to another sort of power than what you see in a more traditional project or project where you maybe don't have this sort of this space where you try to be collaborative and where people are all sitting together. So in a more traditional project, I would say that there's more these traditional roles, there's traditional expectations, and then that sort of power. But in this collaborative space, then you get this soft power. So, you know, if you are a nice person, then you will know more than if you are not so nice. So, and that's actually something that came up, that people who were in the room, they had access to information that people who weren't in the room like the whole time. And then you get this power imbalance, because people who are there for 4 days a week, they are like, oh, but didn't you know that we already decided that? And then the person who's sitting at their home office for 3 days and then at the project office for 2 days has missed that conversation. So I would say that you get another sort of power where a lot of discussions and decisions are made outside of formal meetings, which is of course also one of the points and ideas of a collaborative space. But that's something that you need to take into consideration when working with this kind of spaces, that the traditional or what you might expect from your earlier experience doesn't maybe work in the same way in this sort of space.
Which harks back to your other points about in-groups and out-groups as well.
Yeah.
I've got many more questions, but I'm going to hand back over to David so other people can take the mic. Sorry, David, I was telling you I was muted while I was muted.
And I'm muted while I'm speaking. Yep. So we've had a comment in the chat here, Anna, and I'm just having a look to see the contributors online if they want to ask the question themselves. Let's see if we can get everybody. Do you know how to?
I've done that for you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if Yang, are you on the line? Would you like to ask Anna the question yourself?
Hi, Anna. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to hear your comments about the future trend of buildings physical space management, like in the organization's collaboration work. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you mean that that organizations are trying to work more collaboratively, or a collaborative way of organizing space, or
the organization, how they set their physical space to help the workers communicate?
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting when I think about our projects, because well, if we take our research cases, then in one project they had a very collaborative space with sorry, just a clarification. This paper is written about I made case studies about 3 projects, and this paper is about one of them, but I have to refer to another one, because in this case that this paper is written about, they had their space was structured according to their role. So according to at which geographical planning and construction block the people were allocated. So that's where they were physically sitting in the space. And in the other big project we looked at, they were sitting according to their home organization. And there was not very much collaboration going on in that project. And in this project, they had a lot of social interaction going on. And I think that that's something that you need to think about when you are planning your space. So what kind of collaboration do you want to encourage, and what's the goal of the whole project? And you know, because there's different sorts of benefits also to if you're sitting with your home organization, then you get to know those people better, and maybe that is your goal. But then maybe your goal is to get more collaboration over organization boundaries, or over in and out, or over different group boundaries. Maybe we shouldn't talk about organizations here, but when you have like different groups, so you have different specialists. So I think that the question is what the goal with the collaboration is. So do you want collaboration? Who do you want to collaborate? So you should put those people in a room, basically.
Thank you very much.
Great. I actually had a question. I was just reflecting on, I think a lot of us can with COVID and working from home and these kind of things, can appreciate a lot of the loss of collaboration within our colleagues and our groups. And I was just thinking, were your participants either aware, or could they articulate the benefit or the value of having these mini meetings and the casual problem solving that goes on? Were they able to sort of articulate the benefits of that in the study?
Yeah, they were actually talking about the benefits of these informal meetings, and because we had survey data from also during the start of COVID, and there the general feeling about the project went down, so or about the collaboration and the collaborative space went down, and there were comments that, you know, oh, working from home really shows us what we are missing, and because I did my interviews before COVID hit, and then people were also talking about the benefits of these informal short meetings, and that's interesting to see that even before COVID they were talking about the benefits, and then when COVID hit they were like, yes, now we really see what we are missing. And that's also interesting how that you also, in order to then have a successful collaboration after this sort of thing happens, that the virtual space becomes really important. And I'm not sure how we can, you know, how you can prepare for that and how you can work with that, especially in a construction project when some people have to be on a construction site. So that's a future research idea.
Really interesting. Chrissi, did you have anything else you wanted? Maybe you said there had a few things you would maybe.
I've always got a million questions. The world's so curious. So for me, the research that you came up with really chimed with a lot of research I've read around sort of open plan offices and hot desking. And I just wondered how you felt about that, if you felt that that was reflective.
Yeah, I'd say that was reflected, and especially with the people who weren't at the at the collaborative space so much, because that's one of their main comments, that this collaborative space seems really nice, but we have a problem accessing the social space that's created in the collaborative space. So the people who weren't as often at the collaborative space, they had problems, you know, knowing with simple things like knowing which chair you can take, because they didn't know if somebody used to sit there, and that of course impacts their ability to work, but also their, you know, if they want to go to the collaborative space. So that's something that when you're using this sort of space, not everybody can be at the office at the same time, of course. So that's something that you have to think about when you're planning these sorts of spaces. So, you know, who will need to be there and, you know, how much time should they be there, and how do you incorporate the people who are spending less time there? So how do you get them to be a part of this project?
And the other, that's microaggressions, right? Isn't it? You just create a whole host of other anxieties for people. And the other question that I had was around sort of the sociology of the organisation that you're in. So, for example, if I was within a project where there was a really clear vision and I really felt there was a good sense of fairness and there was a lot of trust going on, do you feel that that would be a completely different collaborative environment in terms of this space part that you're talking about than maybe one where there was less leadership and people sensed unfairness? Or do you think these factors around the physical space that we're discussing now actually override that?
Well, I think it's quite hard to say, because in this project there is a clear goal and clear vision and so on. So, but I would say that well, when I'm reflecting on the other case I was looking at, then the collaborative space can override some of that, because you just get people to meet each other and then you get them to know each other and then they like each other. It's much easier to trust and like somebody you meet face to face rather than, you know, somebody you're just meeting in hostile meetings. But there's also the problem that if you have tensions and then something happens, then you are also, this is now I'm just speculating, but then you are also forcing people into a hostile situation when you have this space, so that they don't have any room to not see each other when they need to cool down. So that's also kind of interesting, that because there was an incident at the other project I was looking at where one actor did something that the others didn't like, and then they were just, you know, really angry at each other. So I'm not sure if that would have been, if that situation would have been made easier if they would have been able to just not see each other for a few days. But
I do think that's a really interesting response, that it can both aid and harm that kind of collaborative aim and that sort of social environment. Thank you.
That's great. Well, I think that's been a really, really good discussion, and we have got a wee bit more time, but I think that if we've come to a natural end, I think that's also positive. I think that what we've talked about today has been really stimulating. As you say, Anna, not more research projects coming out the same area is always good. So I'd just like to thank the speakers today for really good presentations. Thank the audience for their contributions, and we'll close the session. Thanks very much.